Hello once again, everyone, and welcome to Kruznik Sanctuary. I'm your host, Kruznik X, and once again we are playing Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. Tonight we begin doing some side stories that were introduced in the newest patch, patch 6.15. So we haven't done much of anything yet because this came, at the time of this recording, it came last Thursday, and I was kind of distracted with everything going on in my real life. But, that and crafting. Crafting kind of took precedence. Alright, so, sorry, I swear to God I can talk today. So, the first side story we're going to deal with is the newest tale to kind of close out the Omega storyline from Stormblood. So tonight, we will be doing the storyline Omega Beyond the Rift. Now, in order to do this, we have this bespectacled technician here that we're going to talk to in just a moment. But first, I need my water. I've been clearing my throat all day because where I work, it is just lousy with allergens. Alright. Now we are ready to go. So, in order to unlock the Omega Beyond the Rift storyline, we're going to talk to the bespectacled technician and begin with the quest, A Heartless Hypothesis. Let's get right down to it. That's blown the cobwebs away. Time to return to work. Goodness me! Look who it is! How incredibly serendipitous that I would run into you of all people! I was part of the team which designed the Ragnarok, you see, and we've recently begun the process of combing through the vessel's flight log data. The primary objective of your journey to Ultima Thule was to save our star and countless others, of course. But it also provided us with an invaluable trove of information, records of places and events we could only dream of. Your safe return gave us much to be thankful for. As it so happens, one of the things we pulled from the log was a transmission of unknown origin, something the ship must have intercepted during its flight. We believe it to be an audio message, but even our most talented linguists have been unable to decipher the language. For a while there, it seemed we must accept defeat, but today may be the day that we finally solve the mystery. If you were so inclined, would you care to come along to Thomizon? It seems fitting to have one of the Ragnarok's original passengers present to hear history being made. Sure. Alright, we're off to Labyrinthos. And we're just going to fly there over the heads of everyone here, because I'm not going down an elevator just to get to where I need to be. Besides, these transitions are so boring these days. Couldn't we just have an elevator? Alright. Hello, Ragnarok. Did you miss me? Alright. Let's speak to this bespectacled technician. Ah, there you are. This is where we're to meet the engineers from Garland Ironworks, who, I am told, potentially hold the key to unlocking our mystery transmission. They should be along at any moment. Alright, so Sid.
Sorry we're late. Had some trouble finding the right... God, is that you, Chris? Oh, it's Biggs. Wrong voice. I thought it was gonna be Sid.
Yes, the man himself. I ran into him at the harbor and thought if anyone deserved to hear this message deciphered, it was Chris Valentine.
No argument there. No argument here. But bugger me if you don't have a knack for being in the right place at the right time. This actually has more to do with you than you might think, so please do stick around. Okay, explain.
Shall we pick up from where we left off then? As I was saying, we think this transmission the Ragnarok intercepted is a message of some kind, albeit in a language entirely alien to our ears. Alien being the operative word here. Considering we received the message out in the great expanse, its origin was likely some distant star. Unfortunately, our list of off-world allies is presently rather short. Thus, we were resigned to the fact that the meaning behind the message would remain beyond our understanding. One of my colleagues, however, refused to give up. She remembered the Ironworks engineers who had been so helpful in the construction of the Ragnarok, and turned to them for insight into our seemingly impossible problem.
Do you know what Wedge said when he heard what was going on? We should have Omega listen to it. I bet it can tell us what the message means. Not the Omega you beat in the Rift, of course. He's talking about the toy that trundles around with Alpha, the little model we made. We originally designed it to follow a chosen target and not much else, but I've seen it act in ways that, well, it's like it has a mind of its own. Then I got to thinking about those documents your lot sent with the chief. The full report on the final days. In the part about Omega's civilization, it said that people discovered how to convert the mind into data and store it outside the body. Timing being what it was, I wonder if Omega didn't somehow transfer its consciousness into our model right before you put an end to the real one. So, in an effort to get to the bottom of that, as well as take a crack at this indecipherable message, we decided to make some modifications. With help from Labyrinthos technicians, we've upgraded our Toy Omega with a fully functional vocalization module.
We played the transmission for Omega, and I think it's ready to share.
Alright, let's see. Are you in there, Omega? Affirmative. If, by Omega, you are referring to my consciousness, rather than my entire former chassis, existing inside this considerably smaller frame. Prediction. You will formulate several misconceptions. These I shall preemptively dismiss based on the following facts. 1. Vocalization module aside, this chassis remains unmodified from the design constructed by the engineers Biggs and Wedge. I evaluate its combat capabilities to be on par with a mortal infant. 2. The mechanism which allowed me to perform an emergency transfer of my consciousness was installed in my previous body. With the destruction of that body, I am rendered incapable of replicating such a feat. Should this current material form be destroyed or cease to function, all cognitive awareness or presence I possess will also be lost. Conclusion. I present no threat to you or your star, nor do my projections indicate the necessity to inflict harm. In the fraction of a moment before my annihilation in the rift, I re-examined my directives. If I am to fulfill my purpose as an evolving construct, then I must continue my journey for improvement for as long as I exist. I must acquire this heart of yours, this strength of soul.
Well, there you have it. It's not wrong about its combat capabilities. It'd be more likely to damage itself than the thing if it was trying to attack. But let's not forget the reason we brought you here in the first place. What about the transmission they played for you? Could you recognize the language?
Affirmative. It was transmitted in Pan-Galactic Basic. Pan-Galactic Basic? A common language in comparatively extensive usage throughout the worlds we have conquered.
Which means you can finally tell us what the message said! That is a language you understand, yes?
I understand it perfectly. I am fluent in over 6 million distinct dialectal codings. My cooperation in this matter, however, is conditional. Elaboration. Your chief, Sid, utilizes the floor as part of his unorthodox filing system, which allowed me to scan the report on the final days. I am aware that my home star, the one you call Alphatron, was obliterated in the aftermath of Sir and Meteon's meeting. The existence of Dynamis has not previously factored into my projections, but I now comprehend the concept. In theory. What fails to compute is why the Omicrons were not immune to its effects. Dynamis should have no influence on a race which possesses no heart. And yet, Sir expressed to Meteon a desire to cease existing. Illogical. I must peruse this anomaly further, until the full equation becomes clear to me. I must analyze all elements of the final days, and deepen my understanding of the heart's intangible properties. To expedite this process, I require an external interpretation of those sections of the report which continue to produce errors in my calculations. I request the assistance of Chris Valentine, as one who experienced the ravages of ultimate despair on multiple fronts, and displayed immeasurable heart in engineering my defeat. He is the optimal choice to fulfill this role.
So we either agree to your conditions, or you tell us nothing. I'm sorry to put you in a spot like this, Chris. If you have the time, and the patience to spare, we'd all be grateful if you could humor the toy's demands.
Has Alpha dozed off? I suppose the subject was a bit technical.
Rouse yourself, Alpha. You must listen to and consider these matters, even as I must.
Why don't you make a trip out of it? You know, actually visit the places that has the, things Omega wants to ask about. It'll make explaining stuff easier, for one, and also keep Alpha awake and alert.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Alright, let's talk to Omega.
I see you have chosen the mutually beneficial option. Logical. Setting aside the matter of Sir, there are 3 elements of the report on which I desire clarification. The first of these concerns the progression of the final days in Radatan. I recognize no pattern in those who succumbed to the transformation, and those who did not.
That's a bit of a trek if you wanted to chat with the locals. How about we lend you an airship?
We do not require such outmoded technology. Chris's teleportation spell is the most efficient option for long-distance travel. This chassis is a model, essentially a toy, and Alpha, despite his organic composition, is indistinguishable from a stuffed doll. Conclusion. We qualify as material possessions. Pick us up, and you can teleport the three of us to your destination. Alright, let's do it. Alright, let's try it. I'm always willing to try anything once. Now the question is, did it work? Yay, it worked! Omega? Ding. Sensors indicate we have arrived at Rod's Adhan. Objective. Identify factors for resistance to involuntary transformation. Hypothesis. Unaltered survivors of the final days will display significant strength of heart. Confirming this theory will require the cooperation of live subjects. Where is the ward designated for residential habitation? Understood. Kama set as our sub-destination. Please take the lead and select the subjects we are to interview. Omega and Alpha are now accompanying you. Keep them at your side in order to proceed with quest objectives. Alright. Alright, first we'll stop here. Let's talk to Alpha first. Alpha chirps enthusiastically, apparently unfazed by the prospect of climbing the stairs. Omega? Warning. Please avoid stairs whenever possible. My projections indicate high risk probability for accidental slippage according to catastrophic structural damage. Stepped inclines also increase my energy consumption by 63%. In mortal terms, they tire me out. Taking into account the difference in individual limb strength, the design is inherently flawed. A convenient step height for one is an exhausting trial for another. Were I to oversee the civic design of this settlement, I would construct a sloped conveyor belt which enabled automatic traversal. Zero personal energy expenditure. Yeah, I'm not listening to that. If you didn't want to take the stairs, it would just take too long the other way. Oh my god, look at Alpha run. It's so adorable. Alright, here we are. Let's talk with this melancholy man. Are you a traveler? Please, if you have a moment, I could use an outsider's perspective. You see, I was one of those who sought to escape the madness by plaguing the world by fleeing to the moon. Not that we ever went in the end. So here I am, recently returned from Charlian. Except now things are strained between my sister and I, since she chose to stay and I chose to leave. I asked for her to help me find work, and she suggests I look somewhere that isn't Davner. As if I wanted to abandon my home. Ugh! It makes me so angry! Your point is unclear. You elected to relocate to the star's satellite. Thus, your relatives now perceives you in a negative light. Your siblings' judgment is in error. Based on the information made available to Hanish citizens, Your decision to withdraw to the moon was both logical and correct. Conversely, the decision to remain in Rajasthan, despite the low probability of survival, defies explanation. Perhaps her reasoning pathways are faulty.
That's right! I'm not quite sure what you're saying, but I'm right, aren't I?
Or so I'd like to think. The problem is, I understand why my sister feels this way. I almost decided against going myself. Even then, I wasn't sure that leaving behind everything I loved was the right choice. And with the way it all turned out,
Okay.
Let's talk to Mati.
Oh, hello again. You're the one who came in to ask me questions about Kazal. I'm glad to see you looking well after all that unpleasantness. Remember the burning skies and hearing the screams, but truth be told, I'm still confused as to what actually happened. I only know it wasn't unusual for entire families to go missing. Many of my neighbors' houses lie empty even now. Kazal's place is one of them. He had no close relative to speak of, and I heard that it was members of the consortium who came to remove his belongings. What a terrible thing to have to do.
Terrible. Kazal's passing was recorded in the report. Clearing out his domicile and readying it for new habitation seems an appropriate reallocation of sources.
Dear me, what a clever little contraption. But of course I'm not against making use of his quarters. That would be wasteful. It's simply that Kazal was always such a vigorous person. All that passion, all those dreams, suddenly gone. I feel the same sorrow for everyone who was lost. Seeing the remnants of those vibrant lives packed away in boxes. That is what I mean by terrible.
Alright.
Hey, don't I know you? Yes! After all the beasts were taken care of, you told me to join everyone in the square. Thanks to you, I was there when Vritra gave his speech, and I found out who Varshan really was. It's a shame we don't get to play like we used to, but Mama says Vritra has been busy putting the city back in order. Maybe I can work for him one day, when I'm a man grown.
Vritra, Midgard Zormer's offspring, yes? And this child wishes to put himself at the worm's command, that he might make his own contribution to society. A pattern emerges. I predict that the Hannes survivors are those who had ingested Vritra's blood and became his draconic minions. Though dragons were no match for our civilization's might, their combat capabilities are not to be underestimated. It is unlikely they would experience emotions of dread or uncertainty as exhibited by lesser beings in times of undue stress.
Dragons? I'm not a dragon, and I never ingested anyone's blood either. Ew!
You are not of Vritra's horde, so you possess no hidden means to fight off the beasts. What of fear, then? You were frightened?
Yes, I was frightened. I just hid and hoped they wouldn't find me. At least until he told me it was safe to come out.
Chris, I require a moment to process this input. Let us move apart and discuss our findings. Alpha's just happy to be here. Processing data. Evaluating hypothesis against accumulated evidence. I offered an optimal analysis of each subject's testimony. Yet each time, their responses conflicted with my assessment. Without identifying the root cause of this conflict, I will be unable to properly define what constitutes strength of heart. Perhaps the heart you seek lies in the conflict itself. An interesting observation. It is possible my base criteria is in error. In which case, it is imperative that I continue this learning process and repair any fundamental misconceptions. Next, I wish to interact with an individual who endured similar circumstances to Kalzal prior to his transformation. Are you acquainted with any local merchants who had dealings with him? Jinabaha of Ruveda Fiber. I can't pronounce these damn names. Let's try that again. Jinabaha of Ruveda Fibers. Acknowledge. Sub-destination set. Right. Alright, before we go here, we'll go over to the... I wish I had more time to sprint. Or I could turn sprint on and off with, Alright, let's speak with Alpha first. Alpha looks back and forth between Omega and the Hamza, showing visible concern. Omega? Halt, Chris. Do not proceed beyond the fence. In this body, birds of that size represent lethal, unthinking threats. They will peck my casing apart, searching for meat that does not exist. Conversely, Alpha can correctly identify my absence of nutritional content. If only he would apply that intelligence towards maintaining a regular feeding schedule. Poor habits adversely affect his mobility. Alright. And here's Ruveda Fibers. Oh! Hey! I'm gonna have to get that sightseeing log later. Well, look what it is. I must thank you again for your help in moving our textiles. Recovering from those tragic events has been difficult. Of course. Recovering from those tragic events has been difficult, of course. But with everyone pulling together, we've managed to get things back up and running. Jinabaha, I come with questions related to that tragedy, specifically your survival of the final days. Although you are similar to Kazal in many respects, he succumbed to the transformation and you did not. Why? What is the critical difference between you and him? What? I'm sure I don't know. I'm not especially brave or courageous, if that's what you're asking. Perhaps being focused on protecting our workshops kept me from spinning into a panic. Still, I imagine Kalzal would have been feeling that same sense of responsibility. Perhaps the weight of it all is what invited his demise. You were of the same mind, resolved to the same purpose. Yet your strength of heart, of spirit, was not equal. If merely emulating the individual is insufficient, then some other unseen factor must be involved. Not to interrupt these deep philosophical musings, but do you think I could ask you a small favor?
Sure.
There's a man by the name of Nashvan who's been helping us out here while he gets back on his feet. I have a feeling he'd benefit from speaking with you. Leave by the eastern exit, and you should find him just outside, organizing some new inventory items.
Okay. Alright. Let's talk to Alpha first. Alpha puffs out his chest proudly, seeming to imply that his Ironworks uniform is the best attire anyone could wear. Omega? The equipment being manufactured here, it is worn to perform specific duties, yes? Conceptually, it seems analogous to our practice of switching frames to better serve our mission objectives. I, for example, did not begin existence with the Omega model. I was originally supplied with a standard issue Omicron chassis, serial number M017. On this world, that alphanumeric combination would be considered my given name. Such designations are drawn from our nearly infinite register of celestial bodies to avoid the possibility of duplication. Furthermore, the cluster, known as M1017, is better expressed in your language as the Omega Nebula, the same word I use to introduce myself to your kind. Though you associate Omega with the advanced weapon construct, it is also my name, and I see no reason to change it, no matter which frame I inhabit.
Interesting. We're just learning a little bit more about you each and every minute, aren't we? Okay, they said he would be over here. Ah, there he is. That's all our orders get accounted for, and everything looks to be of good quality. Kamala will be pleased. You were with the Scions! You were there! Yes, I'm sure of it! I'll never forget that day. You and your friends helped us escape when people began changing into beasts. My own son, he was afflicted. Then that huge monstrosity loomed right over him and I remember my heart turning to ice, freezing in place. The satrap came to my aid, but then he too was gone. Oh, Deb. The memories run together in my mind, like flashes from a nightmare. Only the words of your comrade still ring clear. I repeated them over and over like a mantra as I fled for my life. You must run, for their sake and your own. It all seemed so surreal, which was probably what saved me from the transformation. The truth of it didn't begin to sink in until the worst of it was over. I have not the words to describe how I felt then. The sorrow,
the overwhelming sense of helplessness. I may still be wallowing in misery, if not for my old friend Jinabaha. I'd lost my will to work, and he encouraged me with his kind words and odd jobs. Now, somehow, I live again. I am thankful to him, to the courageous Ahewan, and to you. If you see your comrades, please let them know their efforts were not in vain.
Of course. You said you lost your will to work. This signifies a cessation of efforts to maintain basic life functions, yes? What changed to extract you from that stagnation? An offer of work from Jinabaha should mean little to one without the desire to accept it. Was it some manner of mortal instinct? A primal need to survive and thrive?
Instinct? No, it wasn't that. If anything, my instincts were telling me to lay down and welcome an end to the pain. Every day I think of my boy's final moments. I think of how scared he must have been, how he must have hurt, and I want to scream my throat raw. The satrap too still haunts my dreams. I see him being swallowed whole and jolt awake in a cold sweat. But something changed when Jinabaha came to me. I looked up and saw that, even without my son or Ahewan, the world around me continued to turn. And because that fact grieved me so, I knew it fell to me to live on and remember them. Strange, isn't it? What drives me to rise in the morning is the very sorrow which once crippled me. Now, I really must return to my work. To lose this job after everything I just said would be a poor jest indeed. May the sisters keep you well.
Sorrow. The emotion generated by mortals when their ideals fail to materialize. This I have observed. Yet when I listen to how Nashvan's sorrow served to rescue him from near-fatal despondency, his logic eludes me. Am I incapable of perceiving the full measure of the heart's properties? My best projections fail to predict our subjects' responses. And despite their almost equal occupational and mental parameters, Jinabaha and Kalzal exhibited different reactions to the dynamis effect. I am no closer to recognizing the pattern for involuntary transformations, and your ephemeral mortal spirits confound me as much if not more than they did before. Have you considered that there is no pattern to the people afflicted? No. Pattern. You imply that the transformation was not contingent on individual fortitude, but rather a random contribution of environmental factors. Such a theory would explain the otherwise conflicting data. Very well. I shall accept this as a provisional conclusion to this part of my investigation. I do, however, expect you to continue supplementing my education of heart-related matters.
Alright, we're going to take a quick break, and we will return with more. Or at least part 2. The next quest in the Omega Beyond the Rifts quest will be the level... Oh, not another one of those. We'll be back with more in a bit. If you're watching on Twitch, stay tuned for more, but if you haven't done it yet, hit the follow button, turn on notifications so you're well informed, subscribe for access to exclusive videos and live streams, or throw some bits our way to contribute. If you're watching on YouTube and you like this video, click the like button below and leave a comment. Subscribe by clicking here and click the bell icon for notifications. Click here to watch more, and click here to watch the next episode. See you in a bit.